I have never once, in nearly 30 years of being together, laid a finger on her. The most I've ever done to her is having a tight cuddle, loving the bones off her.
Tina, come home. There's nobody mad at you. My arms are open. This is killing me, Tina, love. Please.
Welcome to Time Reveal. I have never once in nearly 30 years laid a finger on her. My arms are open, Tina. Please come home. He said it on national television in a voice that cracked in all the right places. Then he said it again and again. By the time it was over, he'd repeated some version of that same plea 14 times, across 14 separate broadcasts, spread out over the better part of a year. For 6.5 years, the public only knew one version of this story. A husband, devastated, begging the cameras for help finding his missing wife. Ireland watched him cry on morning television. Ireland watched him decline a lie detector test, citing exhaustion. And for the most part, Ireland believed him. Nobody watching those broadcasts knew where Tina Satchwell actually was during any of it. Not the journalists interviewing him, not the viewers calling in with tips. Not even for a long time the investigators assigned to find her. What they didn't know is where this story is about to take you. Starting with who Tina Satchwell was before any of this happened, and the ordinary Sunday that turned out to be the last time anyone outside her home ever saw her alive. Her name was Tina, not the missing woman, not the wife. Tina Dingavan, born the 30th of November 1972, in Fermoy, a small town in County Cork. She was raised believing her grandmother Florence was her mother, a truth she only learned otherwise much later in life, when she went looking into her own history and found something more complicated than she expected. It didn't break anything between them. If anything, it deepened it. Florence hadn't been obligated to raise her. She had chosen to. And Tina carried that feeling of being chosen, deliberately, by someone who didn't have to, for the rest of her life. She grew into a woman people describe with a kind of easy warmth. Her longtime doctor, who'd known her for nearly 2 decades, called her a great communicator, open, friendly, in excellent health, with nothing in her life or her medical history that suggested any reason to worry. Fashion was where she really came alive. Not in an extravagant way, but in a precise one. Friends described her as having an expensive eye, someone who could spot a beautiful piece instantly, buy it, wear it, and pass it along. Car boot sales across County Cork became her weekend ritual, and over time, her social world. The same faces, week after week. People who knew her simply as Tina, stylish, warm, always ready to talk. At home, her world was full in a different way. A Chihuahua named Ruby, brought into her life in 2014, not long after the devastating loss of her brother Tom, who died by suicide in 2012. A second dog, Heidi, a parrot named Valentine. Anyone close to Tina describes the animals the same way, as the children she never had. She dressed Ruby to match her own outfits sometimes, a small detail, but one that says something about how she moved through the world, with attention, with care, with love expressed in the smallest of gestures. On a Sunday morning in March of 2017, none of that felt like it was ending. Tina spent the day at a car boot sale in Carricktohill, about 20 miles from home. She found a black jacket she loved, a dress, a bottle of perfume. She chatted with a familiar face, John Keeley, who teased her, joking she must have found herself a new man. She laughed him off without missing a beat. One man, she told him, one man only. She brought the jacket and the dress home that evening and hung them over the living room door, exactly the way she always did with something new she planned to wear soon. She never got the chance. To understand why, you have to go back nearly 30 years, to a much younger Tina, and the man who would come to define the rest of her life. Richard Satchwell first saw Tina in March of 1989, in Colville, a small town near Leicester, England. She was 17. He was in his early 20s, working as a lorry driver. By his own account, he told his brother that very same day that he intended to marry her. They did, in 1990, in Oldham. From the outside, what followed looked like devotion, almost exaggerated devotion. Richard would later describe himself as worshiping Tina, drawing her baths, tending to her, paying obsessive attention to every detail of her appearance and daily life. He called her his trophy wife, someone he considered far above his own league. When his family objected to the relationship, he cut ties with them entirely. Not one relative attended the wedding. For a moment, that kind of devotion can look like love. It's only in hindsight, and through the testimony of the people closest to Tina, that a different picture starts to take shape. Tina's half-sister, Lorraine Howard, later described the marriage very differently in court. She said Richard was controlling, that he found something wrong with nearly every friend Tina made, until her circle of people shrank down to almost nothing. He needed to know where she was constantly. According to Lorraine, Tina had confided in her that she felt she could never truly leave, that he would follow her, wherever she went. The geography of Tina's life traces that pattern almost perfectly. First England, away from her family in Cork. Then, in the early 1990s, a return to Fermoy, where some of her old world came back to her. Then, in May of 2016, a move to Youghal, a town where she had no history, no old friends, nobody who'd known her for years before Richard. Each move, whether by design or not, made her world a little smaller than it had been before. By March of 2017, Tina Satchwell was living in a place that barely knew her, with a man who knew every detail of her. And within that same month, everything about her life was about to change in a way nobody around her could have predicted. On the 20th of March 2017, Richard told police a specific story. He said Tina had asked him to drive to a supermarket in Dungarvan for fish and bird food. He said he left mid-morning and returned around noon to find her gone, along with 2 suitcases and a sum of cash he claimed had been kept in the attic. He waited 4 days before telling anyone, and when he finally did, he drove past his own local Garda station to file the report at Fermoy instead. The officer who took his statement, Garda Connor Gately, later described him as matter-of-fact rather than distressed, someone who seemed to believe Tina had simply gone to stay with family and would turn up on her own. That same evening, someone inside the house used a laptop to search the word Quicklime and watched a video showing how it reacts with water. Twice. Nobody would understand what that search meant for another 4 years. In the meantime, Richard became a fixture on Irish television and radio, appearing on program after program over the following year, always with the same trembling appeal. A wife he insisted was still out there, somewhere, listening. He was offered a lie detector test live on air, and declined. Away from the cameras, the story looked very different. Just over a week after Tina disappeared, he texted her cousin, Sarah Howard, asking if she wanted their chest freezer. It was listed for free pickup online the next day. Within weeks, he was back at car boot sales, selling Tina's own clothes. Every one of those broadcast appearances was being recorded and preserved, without anyone realizing they were building a record that would one day be played back to a jury. Police searched the Satchwell home for the first time on the 7th of June 2017. Over roughly 12 hours, a forensic team led by Dr. Edward Connolly applied luminol throughout the house, a chemical that reveals traces of blood in darkness. They found none. What they did notice was new brickwork under the staircase and plasterboard that looked recently installed. Under Irish law, that wasn't enough on its own to justify breaking up a concrete floor, so the file went into storage, and the search expanded outward instead of in. The Garda Water Unit, Irish Coast Guard, and Army personnel searched Youghal Harbour and the surrounding coastline. In March of 2018, more than 60 officers and cadaver dogs combed a 40-acre stretch of woodland at Mitchell's Wood. Hundreds of leads were logged. Dozens of reported sightings across Ireland, England, and Europe were chased down. Every single one came back empty. Richard remained free, Tina remained missing, and in an evidence room, a laptop sat untouched, holding a search nobody had thought to look for yet. In August of 2021, a new senior investigating officer, Superintendent Anne-Marie Twomey, was assigned to the case. Rather than continue from where the file had stalled, she decided to start over completely, reviewing every lead, every hour of CCTV footage, every witness statement from the beginning. It was during that review that Detective David Kelleher opened the laptop seized 4 years earlier and found the Quicklime search still sitting in the browser history. Around the same period, mobile phone and CCTV data revealed that Richard hadn't been where he claimed to be on the morning Tina disappeared, placing him near home instead of at the shop he said he'd visited. His alibi didn't hold up. By early 2022, Twomey had reached a conclusion the file had avoided for years. Tina hadn't left. She was dead. That conclusion led to forensic archaeologist Dr. Neve McCullough, an expert in recovering concealed human remains. Her research showed that victims of domestic homicide are, in the overwhelming majority of cases, found within a short distance of home, often inside it. Reviewing the original 2017 search photographs, she returned to the same patch of new concrete under the stairs that investigators had noticed years earlier and been unable to act on. Her recommendation, delivered in September of 2023, was simple. Look there. In October of 2023, investigators returned to the house with excavation equipment and a specially trained cadaver dog named Fern. Almost immediately, Fern showed interest in the area beneath the staircase, the same spot flagged 6 years before. As the floor was opened, Detective Brian Barry and the forensic team found a section of concrete visibly different from the rest, and beneath it, black plastic sheeting buried at a depth consistent with a deliberately concealed grave. The dig paused overnight for a full forensic team to take over, and the following morning, a human hand was found in the soil. Richard Satchwell was arrested that day on suspicion of murder. By the next afternoon, dental records confirmed what a distinctive tattoo on the remains had already suggested. It was Tina. She had never left Youghal. Only after her remains were found did Richard offer a new account, one very different from the missing wife story he'd told for 6.5 years. He said he'd found Tina at the bottom of the stairs during an argument, that they fell, and that she died in the moments afterward. He said he kept her body in the house, then in an outdoor freezer, before burying her himself weeks later. That account met the physical evidence at trial, and the two didn't agree. Assistant State Pathologist Dr. Margot Bolster found no fractures anywhere on Tina's skeleton, not even to the small hyoid bone in the neck, which is frequently damaged in cases of strangulation. A belt from her dressing gown was found knotted around her body in a position Dr. Bolster described as unusual, more consistent, in her professional opinion, with moving a body than any act of self-defense. And the Quicklime search, conducted the same evening Richard sat across from police, describing his missing wife, pointed to preparation that came well before any account of a sudden struggle. The jury also heard the 14 recorded media appeals Richard had once used to convince the country he was desperate to find her. After close to 5 weeks of testimony at the Central Criminal Court in Dublin, the jury deliberated for just over 9 hours before returning a unanimous verdict on the 30th of May, 2025, guilty of murder. Richard Satchwell was sentenced on the 4th of June, 2025, by Mr. Justice Paul McDermott to the only punishment Irish law allows, life imprisonment. He lodged an appeal that same day. According to court records from August 2025, formal grounds had been submitted, though no hearing date had yet been set. Outside the courthouse, Tina's family finally spoke about her without needing to defend her memory against a defense strategy. They described her exactly as the people who knew her always had: kind, gentle, devoted to her animals, someone whose life deserved to be remembered as more than a case file. When her remains were identified in October of 2023, Roughly 200 people gathered outside her home in Youghal. Nobody organized it, they simply came, many with their own dogs beside them, standing together for a woman most had never personally met, because they understood exactly what she would have wanted. Her wedding ring, which Richard claimed to have placed with her before burying her, was never recovered. Tina Satchwell spent over 6 years being searched for in harbours, in woodlands, across borders, when she had never left the house she shared with the one person who claimed, loudest of all, to be desperate for her return. If this story mattered to you, subscribe so the next one finds you the same way. And we'll leave you with the question this case leaves behind. How many other files, sitting quietly somewhere, are still waiting to be looked at twice?